So hi everyone, welcome. This webinar is brought to you by ERC Academic Advising, and it's going to be presented by me. My name is Julie, and Pepper, who you just heard from. So today we'll be answering questions about how to use your test scores and transfer coursework to choose courses for fall quarter. We'll be briefly highlighting some important information from Choosing Classes video that we sent to you earlier this summer. If you haven't watched the video yet, please check your UCSD email for the link and be sure to watch it for more detailed information. We have about 1 hour for this webinar, and we will be answering questions at the end. Keep in mind that all questions submitted to the webinar are visible to other participants, and due to federal law that protects students' privacy and records, we can't discuss or answer specific questions about your records without written consent. But we will try our best to generalize and answer as many questions as we can during this time. And by registering for this webinar, you will be acknowledging that your name and questions are visible to ERC Academic Advising and other attendees in the session. So let's start the presentation. As mentioned in the video, if you sent your test scores and official transcripts to UCSD Office of Admissions by July 1st, then they should be posted to your UCSD records by mid-August. If you sent them after the July 1st deadline, you don't need to resend them, but they may be posted late to your UCSD records. If you didn't send them at all, this is the address for the UCSD Office of Admissions. Please be sure to submit those scores and official transcripts as soon as possible. To find out if your test scores and transfer coursework have been received by UCSD Office of Admissions, you can check your UC San Diego applicant portal at beyourtriton.ucsd.edu/account, which is the link on the screen. To find out if your test scores and transfer coursework has been posted to your UCSD records by the UCSD Office of Admissions, you can check tritonlink.ucsd.edu periodically, and you can also review the video we sent for a step-by-step guide on how to find your academic history. After you've checked your scores in Triton Link, you can also see the ERC AP IB chart to see which courses your test scores exempt you from. You can find this on the ERC website at roosevelt.ucsd.edu. Again, you can review the video we sent for a step-by-step guide on how to find and read the AP IB chart. As mentioned before, most of the college transcripts you sent to the UCSD Office of Admissions will be posted later in August. Math and English classes have a priority posting, so they should be on your record in time for you to enroll in the fall quarter. However, other courses may take a little longer to post to your records, and that's okay. If you took coursework at another UC, a four-year institution within California or outside of California, you may need to check with the UCSD Office of Admissions as to whether the courses are UC transferable. You should check with the corresponding UC San Diego department to see if the courses can count towards requirements. If you took coursework at a California community college, use the website assist.org to see whether they are UC transferable and if they're equivalent to any UC San Diego courses. It's important to note that the IGETC program, partial IGETC, and all transfer agreements apply exclusively to students admitted as transfers. These programs do not apply to students admitted as freshmen. If you took the SAT, SAT2, or ACT exams, your scores may be able to clear your entry-level writing requirement, place you into a calculus course, or clear your ERC language GE requirement. There are placement exams you might need to complete before enrolling in a fall quarter course. As mentioned in the video, you may or may not need to take these exams depending on your SAT, SAT2, ACT, AP, and IB scores. For math and chemistry, you may not need to take these exams if you do not need calculus or chemistry for your major and/or graduate school requirements. Throughout the summer, we'll be hosting more webinars, sending videos, and other helpful information. Please review the important dates and deadlines calendar in the New Student site at newstudent.ucsd.edu and keep checking your UCSD email address for those updates from ERC Advising. There will also be online advising available on that site later this summer. At this time, we will begin our question and answer portion of the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to submit them through the webinar system, and the counselors, me and Pepper, will answer them live. As a reminder, due to federal law that protects students' privacy and records, we can't discuss or answer specific questions about your records without written consent. But we'll do our best to generalize and answer as many questions as we can during this time. By registering for this webinar, you are acknowledging that your name and questions will be visible to ERC Advising and other attendees in the session.
All right. Thanks, Julie, for doing that small presentation for us. So now what we're going to be doing is basically answering your questions for the rest of this hour until we are done. So give me 1 second while I set this up. There you go. There's Julie. Hey. And then let's see if I can get me set up in here real quick. And there I am. Hello. So we're going to be here answering your questions basically live for the rest of this time. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom webinar screen, you should be able to see a little toolbar, and one of them says Q&A. You can type your questions in there, and then also other people who have asked questions already, you can actually thumb them up, and then the ones that get the most thumbs up will go to the top. We'll answer those first, and then we'll just basically go down the line until the hour's up. Okay, so we already have 2 questions that have been submitted. One of them is from a student that said they already sent their AP scores to UCSD, and it doesn't look like they've been posted yet to their record. So what do they do?
So as previously mentioned, the UCSD Office of Admissions, they're working on it right now. It might not be posted until mid-August, but as long as you submitted it by July 1st, it should be posted by then. However, if you submitted it after July 1st, at that point, it might be posted after the mid-August deadline. So if you are able to, you can look at the AP-IB chart, and you should have your official scores, and so you can compare and contrast them already. They just might not be posted to your record. Just make sure you're checking it throughout the summer to periodically check, because they post them as they come or as they complete them. So as you can see on the screen, Pepper is showing you the important deadlines and important dates that you need to know. And so you can see that we're going to be doing course recommendations and everything, and those will all be released in mid-August.
Okay, so it looks like we have 2 more questions. One of them was they were admitted as a certain major, and then they're wanting to apply into a capped major. So the question that they actually have is, what would you suggest to take in the first quarter? However, let's expand that question a little bit more. So, okay, so how would they know what class they need to take for their first quarter? But then also, if they wanted to get into a CAP major, what does that process look like? So 2 different questions.
Okay, so to answer the first portion, so how you'll know what to take in the fall quarter. Our office will be doing course recommendations. As you can see, they're going to be available starting August 16th. And those course recommendations are personalized. They're going to be based on all the information you submitted on your academic background on the new student site, as well as all your official test scores and everything. What we're going to keep in mind your major, and if you proposed a new major, we're going to actually give you course recommendations based on that proposed major. To answer the second question, if it is a capped major, we do make it well known that capped major students aren't guaranteed admission to a capped major. Essentially what a capped major is a major that has too many students within their department, so they can't accept any more students unless you're admitted as that. Otherwise, you have to go through an application process. So we will be giving you course recommendations based on a capped major, but you will need to speak to the major department specifically to see what the procedures are to apply into the major.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like on this page, these are all the capped majors that we have at UCSD. So if you're looking into applying into any of these, so the one person that was asking about econ, you'd have to actually click on the econ department link and then check out their website on what you need to do in order to apply into there. All right. So next question. So it looks like assist.org is not updated for the 2018-2019 school year. What do I do, basically?
Yes. So almost all departments on campus, if not all of them, are aware that assist.org is not updated. They're going through a website renovation, and so that's what they're focusing on. So the earliest or the latest catalog you'll see is the 16 to 17 catalog. We recommend students look at that. Most departments are honoring all those courses. Mm-hmm. So you would just need to check in with the department, confirm it with them, ask, hey, are you still honoring the 16 to 17 catalog? Most of them are, but you should always check in with the department to be sure.
Yeah, the majority of them are, I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's a pretty safe bet, but if you want to be like 100% sure, then always call the department. And actually, let's show you how to do that right now. So if you go to the main website, ucsd.edu, then if the internet is going fast, so you go to academics. If you click on that, undergraduate degree programs is where you're going to find all the list of our major departments. Okay. All right. So let's see. So if students sent their transcripts already, but then they got an email from admission saying that their acceptance might be canceled because if their transcript isn't received by July 1st, should they be worried? Like what's going on?
So you can always check in with admissions. A lot of the times they send that as a precautionary email. So they do need it received by July 1st. If they, there are instances where students aren't able to get it by that deadline, but if you talk to them and you let them know your situation, they can let you know what to do moving forward. So yes, you should look into that email, look into the admissions office, contact them, and they should be able to tell you what to do moving forward.
Okay. So now there's questions about AP, IB stuff.
Okay.
So students took an IB exam that gave them elective credits, but it doesn't satisfy anything for their requirements. They don't need a language for their major. It's just, elective credits. So what did it say? Elective credits, not. So can they use those credits towards their language requirement?
So that's a tricky question. So.
Yeah.
It depends. If you have prior knowledge in a language, you would only get credit towards our language requirement if your AP score gave you credit towards a specific class. So if you solely got units for it, you won't necessarily be able to use it towards a language requirement. But what you can do is take a placement or a proficiency exam. A placement exam will essentially just let you know where within the sequence you would need to start the course. And for ERC specifically, we have a 4-quarter requirement for our language, but if you take a placement exam and you're placed into a higher level within the sequence, you just complete the sequence from that point on. So it really just depends. You can also do a proficiency exam, which is essentially if you can read, write in that language, then you can take a proficiency exam, and if you pass it, then you just test out of the requirement. But just if you only got elective units, it won't necessarily count towards language, but you can still do other things to make sure that you're making progress towards completing that requirement.
Yeah, so as Julie was mentioning, if you go to the linguistics department website, under their language program tab is where you can find the placement test for French, Spanish, German, Italian, and then proficiency exam. This is for all other languages. And actually, I think we might have a slide that kind of gives you that information. There you go. So these are all of the languages that we have at UCSD, and you can check out those departments specifically for how to place into their classes. If you have IB credit that just gave you elective credit, for example, in Spanish, you can check with the linguistics department, see if that can get you at least a higher level like Spanish, and then can kind of move towards completing our GE requirements. Any of these other languages, you can also talk to those departments in particular. I'll leave this up for just a little bit longer, but then we're going to go to a different page right now. Okay, so the AP IB chart is on our website, so you can also check here to see, like what IB scores got you. We only take higher level IB scores, but for the English one, we do take the standard level to complete your entry-level writing requirements also. That was a good question. Okay, so let's see. Do you get language credits if you are proficient in a language?
So you won't get, if you just take the proficiency exam, you can test out of our requirement. However, it doesn't give you any units. It doesn't give you any course credit because you're technically not taking a course. But it will show on your transcripts and such that you have proficiency in a language. You just won't get units for it.
Mm-hmm. And actually, let's go to the ERC website, so roosevelt.ucsd.edu, and I'm going to go to Academics, General Education, and on this page, you can actually see the language requirements, and what counts and what doesn't count, and also what language classes you might need to do, which ones will complete the requirement, etc., etc. This is a good, useful website to use. All right. Can AP US History be used for regional specialization credit?
We will check the chart. Give us 1 second.
Yes. Regional specialization, which is a little bit lower than the language requirements. I do not believe it does. I think the only one that counts is AP Europe.
I believe Pepper's correct. If do you want to pull up the AP chart?
Yes. So this is how you look up like the regional classes. There you go. Let's go back one more to the AP IB chart. There you go.
So AP US History, from what I recall, I don't think it gives you any course credit. Oh, just kidding. Let's see. If you got AP US History, no. So it does not give you any specific course equivalency. So it only gives you elective units, and therefore you can't use it towards regional specialization.
So it looks like the only one would be AP Europe. So if you got credit for that one, that can count towards your regional requirements. But the AP US History, it does satisfy your American History and Institutes requirement. So it is counting towards something, and you get units for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, good question. Let's see. Is there a maximum for the amount of AP credits that they can get?
No. Is there? No. There's no maximum. So you can get as much AP credit, and just make sure you're sending all your scores. We'll accept it if they're eligible.
Yeah. I think the most I've seen is like a student doing is like 72, something like that. They a lot. There is a maximum number of lower division units that you can submit, which is
105,
which you will never get to as a freshman student. Even if you did community college classes while you're in high school and then transfer them in, more likely than not is that you will not hit that limit. Usually our transfers hit that limit. So generally you'll be able to transfer in as many units as you want if they're lower division or upper division even, okay? Let's see. So what are the placement tests that are required for, this one's asking about a specific major, but let's go back to that screen on our presentation. Give me 1 second. Go back to what are the placement exams? So let's see. Why don't we say like generally, if we were looking at these placement exams, are there certain majors that would need to focus on certain ones more than others, or? Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if you're pre-med, for instance, you definitely need to take a math and a chemistry exam. And it really just is dependent on if you have any previous coursework or AP scores that would qualify you, because some AP and IB scores will qualify you to just start within a sequence. If you just have no history with math or chemistry, and you just need to take the placement exam, you definitely do need to do that. Otherwise you won't be able to take one of the courses. It really is really hard to answer because it's a specific individual case that we look at. As for language, if you don't have any prior knowledge of a language, or if you're just starting fresh, then you don't have to take a placement exam. However, if you do have prior knowledge, because most of you, if not all of you, have taken a language in high school, we recommend doing the placement exam just so you have to take less courses, and you don't have to take more than you need to. And then as for the analytical writing placement exam, that is for the ELWR, which is a university requirement for all UCSD students. If you did not clear it with your APs, your SATs, or if APs, SATs, then you do need to take the exam because you do need to complete this requirement by the end of your first year.
And then on the screen right now, we're showing what you need to do in order to complete the entry-level writing requirement. What if, I'm just going to add a question on here, what if you don't pass your entry-level writing requirement by the end of your first year?
Then you get disqualified.
Yes.
So it's a
good thing.
It's a really important requirement. If you don't complete this ELWR requirement, you will get kicked out of the university by the end of your first year.
Right. And do we want that?
We don't.
No.
So yes, so math and chemistry, it's really, if you're a STEM major, most likely you're going to need to take this exam if you don't have anything that clears you or adds puts you into a class. So just as an example, these are majors requiring the math requirement, and then you can see, can you click yes. So you can see what scores exempt you and what scores put you in what class. If you don't have any of these eligible scores, then yes, you should take the exam.
Well, what if students have a major that does not need calculus? Let's say sociology, for example.
If your major does not need math, does not need calculus, do not worry about it. You do not need to take these exams. we have general education requirements that can be fulfilled by taking chemistry or math, but if you go on our website, you can see that we've separated our GEs for students who are pursuing a STEM major, just so they can overlap classes with their major, and for students who aren't pursuing STEM majors, so you can take classes that aren't necessarily math or chemistry based.
Cool. All right. So let's see. We have a very specific question about an AP score, and that is actually, I'm going to direct you back to the AP IB charts so you can see what your specific score will actually give you. So if you go ahead and check the AP IB chart that's on our website, just go to the academics tab and then scroll to the bottom left, then you can check here to see what your score actually gives you.
And these are ERC specific, so you can see that on the right-hand side, it's what requirement for us you might be clearing. In the middle, it's UCSD, so just in general what you might be clearing, and then units and scores. So just make sure you go through that. If you have any confusion, you can definitely follow up with us, but it's pretty self-explanatory.
All right, and then also the IB chart is right below it. So you go up here or down here, depending on which scores you've gotten. Let's see. So let's see. It looks like a student, it's kind of specific, but maybe, you know, circumstances might make you have the same situation, which is totally fine. So if a student is needing to send transcripts, so it looks like there are some issues with like their name is like different or anything like that, like, or their records might not match the records that they have here. So if they have to resend it, does that affect them being able to like clear requirements or meeting some of those placement things or all that stuff?
Yes, so you would just need to talk to admissions to let them know of your circumstance, so at least they can be on the lookout for your transcripts and such. But I also would recommend that you contact the registrar's office so they can work with you on your legal name and what name you would prefer to go by, because it's really important that your name matches things, so you know this confusion doesn't occur in the future. So admissions is the first step. Talk to them about the transcripts, ask them if it's okay if you send it in, and you know, get whatever you need to fix on there fixed. And then talk to the registrar's office just to make sure that your legal name on file matches other documents, and if not, what to do about it and how you can go about changing those things.
Yeah. So that's for like legal name changes. So let's say you maybe got married, or maybe you wanted to change your legal name for various reasons, then yes, you would have to go to the registrar's office to kind of make that official change. But for if you have like a preferred name, for example, maybe you use a different name, or maybe like for me, like I use my middle name, you can actually go to Triton Link, and then under your My Triton Link, if you log into there, there's going to be a section that says like personal, and you can actually update like your like a preferred name that'll kind of show up on everything, and also your like gender identity if you wanted to add like pronouns, things like that. You can add it in there under your My Triton Link. Okay, so for students that works for, then go ahead and do that as well. So you can access that right now if you wanted to. Let's see. How do semester credits transfer into the quarter system?
Oh, good question. So for every semester unit you receive, it is equal to 1.5 quarter units. So just to go back, one semester unit equals 1.5 quarter units. So you just have to do the math, and then we always transfer it over as quarter units. So you just need to do that quick conversion. You can see how many units you'll get.
Okay. So if a student wants to switch into a capped major and they met all the requirements, yay, is it a guarantee that they're going to get in? Is it pretty easy? How does that work?
The answer is no. There's never guaranteed within any capped major, even if you meet all the requirements. And that's just because you'll probably be, there will probably be tons of other students who have also met the requirement. So we really, UCSD is a really decentralized campus, meaning that each department has their own procedures, has their own way of doing things. So each of these capped majors might have a different application process. So just as an example, one of these, I can't pinpoint which one exactly, does have a lottery system. So
the computer science.
Computer science.
Computer science and engineering, that one's a lottery. So.
Yes, so computer science and engineering, that's a lottery system. What that means is that you have to meet all the prereqs, so take all the classes you need, meet like a certain like requirement, all of their eligibility. And then they take all the students who are eligible and then put it into a lottery system, and they'll just pick from that, just to be fair to all the eligible students. So with that being said, it's never a guarantee. You shouldn't bank on the fact that you're going to get into this major within your 4 years here at UCSD. And I know that could be frustrating, but just always have a backup plan and, be aware of this coming into it so you don't get frustrated later on when you can't, if you can't get into the major.
Yeah. And then on that note, so if, let's say, they try that and it doesn't work out, they can't get into a capped major, what do they do in order to find like a different major?
So I recommend coming into advising. The reason being is because our office, other offices on campus, major departments, they have knowledge of what majors are very similar to one another. We can possibly recommend other majors that are really similar to what you're looking for and your career path and would still be useful for your career path. So, we're here to help you figure out alternatives. We want to help you. We want to make sure that your time is well spent here. So come in and see us, and you can see that Pepper pulled up all our information. We have walk-in advising. We don't do appointments for incoming freshman students in the fall quarter just because we want you to transition into the quarter system. But starting in the winter quarter, you can definitely make a half-an-hour appointment to come see us. But in the fall quarter, you can most definitely come in during our walk-in hours. Just come in and we'll have an advisor meet with you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So is there a deadline to complete the placement exams?
So the sooner the better. As for the AWP, which is the Analytical Writing Program exam, so that one should be done much sooner than later, just because, as Pepper mentioned, you need to complete that requirement by the end of your first year. So we want you to make sure that you take it just in case you need to take classes for it. You can start off early and you still have time to complete those classes. And then for math and chem, we recommend that you do take it before we release course recommendations if possible, which is mid-August. Just because we're using that information and your course recommendations might not be 100% accurate if we don't have it on file. So if you can take it before then, that's definitely beneficial. And then what was the last one? Language placement. You can take language at any point within your 4 years here to complete our requirement. So that's really just based on your own timeline.
But let's say it's like if they were to take the placement exam now and they placed into like the third level class or the fourth level class, but then they decide not to take it, and then it's like second year, like what happens at that point?
At that point, you do have to take the placement exam again. Wait, are we talking about language?
Yeah, language. So let's say they take the placement exam and they place into like the third or fourth level class, but then they don't enroll in the class.
Sorry, misunderstood. So if you get placed into the third and fourth quarter, we always recommend that you do take it sooner than later. The reason being is because the knowledge is fresh on your brain. You're going to have this knowledge because you're coming right from high school. Whereas if you take it at a later point, like let's say you take the placement exam now, you're in the third, fourth level, you take it 2 years later, can't remember anything, then at that point you're not going to do well. So we always recommend that you take your placement exam at the time where you're going to take the class, just so you know what level you should be going into.
Yeah, and that's specifically for language.
Yes, and then for math, it's just if you want to do math for the fall quarter, you have to take the placement exam before the fall quarter begins.
Okay, so should you send scores, and I'm going to actually expand this question to like transcripts or anything, even when they're low to UCSD?
Yes, you should, and you have to actually. You have to. One of our mandates is that you have to report all of your scores. It's not going to negatively impact you. You've already been accepted at this point, so you just need to send them in just for our knowledge, and so we can see what's on your record. But it does not negatively impact you. You should send it in as soon as possible.
Yeah, the problem is if you don't send it in, is because like you already told UCSD all the stuff that you did before coming in here, and if they don't receive it or they receive it late, we've heard of students that got their admissions like declined or denied because you quote unquote like lied by not submitting everything you're supposed to. So as part of your admission is that it's on the promise that you're going to send everything, even if it's low. So that's kind of the agreement in terms of coming to UCSD. You have to send everything, even if you got low scores or anything like that. It's just so it's all open. There's no like you're not hiding anything. So yeah, send everything. Okay. And let's see, what is the process for adding a minor, or if they wanted to double major, and when does that happen?
Okay. For minors, you can add a minor at any point. You just go on your My Triton link, and it's going to be under the major and minor tool. So you can add it at any point, but we do recommend that you come in and see us first. The reason being is so we can help you time it out and make sure that you're able to complete your minor within your time here at UCSD, because you have to graduate within 12 quarters. So we want to make sure that you have that space, otherwise you're adding it for nothing. But then also we'd recommend that you take a few classes for your minor first before declaring it, just to see if it's actually something you want to pursue. And if it's so, you can add it at any point. It's just if you complete like a certain amount of units, I think it's 150.
150, yes.
Then at that point it does go through a review, and it does get reviewed by the department and by the college, and we could decline it at that point. But if you declare it beforehand, then you can just go ahead and do it on the system. As for double majors, you can apply for double majors, but you have to meet some specific steps first. One of them is being that you have to complete 50% of the lower division requirements for each major. And then you would have to go through this petition process. So you're not going to be able to declare it right away, because you need 50% of each major's lower division requirements. And then you can also see on the policy right here what other things you have to do. This isn't quite updated yet to meet our new regulations, but as long as you can complete it in 4 years, you're still under all these university regulations, and you should be okay. But you have to take the classes first.
Mm-hmm. And just to go back to what Julie was saying before, yes, you can add a minor anytime you want. You can add a double major, like when you meet the requirements. The only thing is right now in the Triton system, you actually can't do any of that right at all, because you have to be enrolled in a class before you can actually start adjusting your records. So right now you can't add a minor, I can't do any of that stuff, but you can absolutely look at, department websites, look at the catalog, and then once you enroll in classes for fall, like right when you sign up for classes, then all of that stuff gets activated in Triton Link, and that's when you can actually add the minor onto your records at that point. But again, for the double majors, you just have to wait until you meet the requirements. So this is a good question. Students asking, what are unit credits? Or what are units and what are credits? Or is there a difference?
No, units are credits. They're used interchangeably here at UCSD. So that's a really good question, because the terminology can be really confusing. So credits are units. And those are important because you do need at least 180 units to graduate.
I thought I had a slide for it. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so you do need 180 units in order to graduate. And a lot of times we differentiate between our wording. So for instance, elective credit or elective units. What that means is any units being worked towards that 180 that isn't counting towards major, minor, GEs, or university. So basically it's not counting for anything. It's solely being used for units. That's what we would call elective units. If it's major elective, that's different. Talk to your major about that.
I have a slide for that though.
Oh,
yes.
There. Major electives are courses required to complete a major. And you can see on the screen what these mean. So this differentiates between the major electives, general electives, but credits and units are the same, just different wording.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we will be having webinars later on this summer that talk about how to be successful academically. We will be talking a little bit more about like elective credits, units, lower division credits, upper division credits, things like that. So sign up for those webinars when we send out those emails. But yeah, as of now, it's kind of a teaser on what you'll be getting later on. So if you forget now, that's okay. We'll be sending out a recording of this video, or kind of like the best video out of the 3 that we're doing this week. And then we'll also be having those webinars, but also recording those as well. So if you forget, you can always go back and rewatch these, or check out the videos that we push out as well, okay? So let's see, will elective credit that we earned be automatically included in the recommended schedule?
Sorry, we're trying to figure out how to answer this. So elective credits, again, they're not being used for anything except for getting you to that 180 in order to graduate. So it's not going to be on your course recommendations. Your course recommendations are solely based on the classes you need to take for the fall quarter. And we're more so looking for the courses that you got like equivalency for, or courses that you already got exemptions from. We're going to look into that, but units don't really play a role at this point.
Mm-hmm. And we only give course recommendations for fall.
For fall.
Okay, yeah, because obviously you are not here, so you cannot come see us. in person, and we don't do advising for incoming students in the summer because we're spending all of our time doing the course recommendations. So if we're meeting with students at the same time, or if we're answering the phone, so Julie is actually the one that answered all the phone calls.
Hi.
So if you call, be nice to Julie. She's answering all of our questions today, as well as spending some time on the phone answering all those questions as well. So because if we're getting interrupted and doing all that stuff while we're meeting with students, and we wouldn't be able to get your course recommendations in time. There's about 1,069 of you guys as freshmen, or around that number, and there's only 8 advisors here in our office that provide course recommendations. And like Julie said, we do it per student. So every course recommendation we do is really unique to you and what you submitted. So, give us some time. We're trying to work on that. And we actually are getting our transfer list this week, which there's about 600 transfer students as well. So we're working with about 1,600 students this whole summer. And that's why we can't really do walk-in advising or appointments, anything like that for incoming students. So we're doing the best we can to try to push out those course recommendations for you as quickly as possible. Let's see. Is there any way to verify that scores satisfy writing requirements?
Yes, our APIB chart. It should say on there whether your scores exempt you from the entry-level writing requirement. Otherwise, you can go to their website and it has all the ACTs, all the SATs, and all the APIBs just like on one part. You can see right there all the bullet points. Those are all the eligible scores. And so if you met one of them, you don't have to worry about the requirement. You've already cleared it. And as long as you sent your scores in. Otherwise, that's another issue.
So say, do you recommend taking the entry-level writing course before taking any MMW course? And by the course is AWP. So if you don't pass the entry-level writing requirement exam, or what is it called? If you don't clear the exam, basically, then you get placed into a course. And it's like a writing prep course in order to
Yes, so you definitely need to take this before MMW. The reason being is because based on your placement, let's say you do get placed into one of the analytical writing program classes, you might not be able to move forward within the MMW sequence or even start the sequence. So you need to take the exam before you start MMW. And with MMW, it's only offered certain quarters. So if you miss one quarter of, sorry.
Yeah. So San Diego's a really big military town, and over the summer they practice the jets,
The airs.
Yeah, the air show stuff. So every summer we have the one problem in our webinars is sometimes we have planes going by.
Sorry,
yeah.
But
anyways,
back to what I was saying, which was so yeah, if you're placed into one of those courses, you might not be able to start MMW or even continue in it. And it's really important because MMW is only offered during specific quarters within the school year. So let's say, as an example, you miss MMW 13 for the school year or MMW 12, you'll have to wait an entire year before you can start the sequence again. So you just want to make sure that you take the exam and make sure you're starting off on the best foot. And from that point, you can see on the screen, MW 11 is only in the fall, 12 is only in the winter, 13 is only in the spring. So if you miss one of these because you need to take the analytical writing program or you aren't tested out of it, then you would have to wait an additional year before you can start it again.
Yeah, so really important, do it as quickly as possible. The only caveat is MW 11 does not require writing, so that you can absolutely take in the fall. But you need to pass,
unless they are in AW.
Yes, if you're in 2A, we'll give you specific course recommendations. Yes, thank you for that. Based on the specific course recommendations we give you, you might be able to take AWP 2A at the same time as MW 11, or sometimes you might not, depending on what your scores look like. But generally, yes, you should be able to take MW 11 first, but then you might not be able to move on to 12, depending on what your scores is, or if you don't pass that.
The reason being is because 12 and 13 are writing intensive. You can see that they're both 6 units or 6 credits. That's more than a typical class usually is. Most of them are 4 units here at UCSD, and the reason it's 6 is because it's so writing intensive. So you're not going to be able to do well in it if you're still not clearing the entry-level writing requirement.
So what's the earliest that a student can switch to non-capped majors? So a non-CAPS major.
Oh, yeah. So once,
and is it possible to do that before the first quarter?
okay, so as Pepper mentioned, a lot of the things you won't have access to until you enroll in a class. So no, you won't be able to change your major right now. But as soon as you enroll in your classes, you can change your major then. You just go on your My Triton link, and it's under Major Minor Tool, and you just click that, and you can go ahead and change it to whichever uncapped major it is that you like. But again, you do have to be enrolled first. But there's no rush. If you proposed a major on the new student site, that's what we're going to give you course recommendations based on. So we're going to be honoring those changes before you even make the change. So just make sure you give us that information.
Okay, let's see. How does pass no pass grading options work, and how does it affect your GPA?
Okay, so pass no pass. You can take a class two ways. You can take it with a letter grade, or you can take it as pass no pass. What pass no pass means is that you don't get assigned a grade to it. By the end of the quarter, you either pass the class or you don't pass the class. And that has no effect on your GPA because it's not a letter grade. And you still would get units for it and everything, but it's really dependent on the class you're taking and for what requirement. So for a lot of our general education requirements, you can take it as pass no pass. There are stipulations based on the requirement, but you can look at each individual requirement and we label it specifically like, yes, you can take it letter grade, or yes, you can take it pass no pass. As for major, all major courses have to be taken letter grade. And what pass no pass is essentially, it's just, it doesn't impact your GPA. And there is a regulation on it though. You can only take 25% of your UCSD courses as pass no pass. So depending on if you enroll in it and you put no pass, you can check it on your degree audit and it'll do the math for you and tell you like where you are in it right now. And you can always check in with us if you're not sure, and we can tell you whether that class is eligible.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to interrupt really quick for our quick questions. Julie, you seem to know a lot about UCSD requirements and stuff. Yes. So it's because you were...
I was an ERC grad.
That's
I
right.
I graduated from ERC last year, and now I'm an academic counselor here. So know a lot about UCSD, know a lot about ERC.
And a lot of MMW as well.
And yes. MMW, yes. So if you have any questions, let me know. Pepper's also a UCSD grad.
Yes. Yay.
But he was rebel, so he's...
Yeah. But see, I went to the better college after working, so yay. So let's see. A student got AP credits, but it's not showing on their portal. So how do they make sure that they've cleared their writing requirements if their AP credit hasn't hit their records yet?
You go to the website and you check that you have one of the eligible scores. If you do, you should be okay. You can always check in with our office to see if we can see it on our end, because a lot of the information right now could just be internal. And that internal information is just used for, making course recommendations and everything. But as long as you met one of those bullet points, you should be fine. You just need to make sure that your scores were officially received. And for if any reason you met those eligibilities, but it's still not showing, just talk to us. We can help you figure it out. Talk to admissions, make sure that they clear, because lots of students come in, there could be internal issues and mistakes happen here and there. It's nothing to be worried about because we can fix it.
And the thing about the placement exams is that most of them are free, so you can just take them, like the chemistry placement exam, language exam, you just take them and it's fine. The thing about the analytical writing placement exam, if you already have an AP score or any of these requirements that clear you of it, then you should be fine. If there's issues with sending your scores or anything like that, again, check with admissions. But I caution about if you need to take the analytical writing placement exam if you're waiting on scores, because there is a charge for this exam in particular. I want to say it's like $110. So that's a lot of money. You already spent money taking like, the courses and the SATs and stuff like that. So if you have scores that already clear you that, try to get those to push through. You can also contact the analytical writing program, put their contact up here too. So if you have maybe like a copy of your records or scores, maybe like, hey, can you help me like clear this out? I have proof that I have passed it, but issues with your transcripts or scores getting sent in, save yourself the $110 so you don't have to take this exam. The math placement exam, so mathtesting.ucsd.edu. If you need to take this exam and you're around the UCSD area, the in-person exams are free. So you can take that on campus and they're free and you just place into there, that's fine. But if you can't do that and you need to still take it, you can do it through the online Proctor program, but that is a $20 charge in order to do this online in the comfort of your home. And that's just because of the setup and the tech that you would need to do in order to make that happen. And then paying for the proctor to make sure that you're not cheating on the exam. So those are the only two that require like a fee, but the other ones are free of charge. You don't have to pay for those. Let's see. So when do they get to know who their academic advisor is? And then the second part is, what is their job? Okay. So let's do how they know, like, when do they get, I guess, assigned, I think is part of the question.
Okay, so you don't get assigned a specific counselor. All of our counselors are, for ERC at least, are equipped with all the knowledge. Any counselor can help you with really anything because we all have the same well of knowledge. So you don't get assigned a specific counselor. If you need to meet with us, you can just come in and we'll have someone who's available to meet with you during our times. We all have different positions, but we all work really close together and we know the knowledge and we share the knowledge. So you're not just assigned to anyone in particular, but if you do have a preference, you can always request to meet with that person. That's perfectly fine as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of what we do, so a lot of what we do is we help students figure out their 4 years here. We're here to support you and help you throughout your academic journey. And so with that being said, we have walk-in hours. You can come meet us in person. You can get, advice on changing a major, on how well you're doing in classes. If you just need someone to talk to you about academics, we're really good with that.
Yeah.
So,
it's like our job. Right?
It's like our job. So you can come in and meet with us. We're more than happy to help you. A lot of the information we have is online, so you can always go there first and try to find that. But, we're here to provide you with counseling for your academic and personal goals. And so you can come in and meet with us when you are able to, and we can help you figure everything out.
Mm-hmm. And if you aren't, or even if you don't have an academic question, but you're just not sure where to start, you can always start with our office. And because we have to be pretty knowledgeable about the whole campus, because everything touches on academics, like all of your student activities or like, your financial aid and all that stuff, like we'll at least either be able to answer your question or we'll be able to know where to direct you so you're not running around trying to find it yourself. So if you're not sure where to go, you can always ask us and then we can either direct you to the right person or answer your question for you. So that's kind of what we do. And let's, on that note, let's talk about the difference between ERC Academic Advising, which is what we are, and their major advisor, department advising.
Okay, so for ERC, as you all know, you're in ERC. So we specialize in your general education and university requirements. So that's what we typically touch base on with you, is to make sure you're on track with your university requirements, you're on track to graduate, you're on track to complete all your GEs. As your major, we don't advise on behalf of the major just because it's so much information. We don't want to lead you the wrong way. So major departments specialize in their major. So if you have classes on like what classes to take for your major, if this class will count, if you can do this with your major, if you can do that, always go to your major department. And each major department on campus has an advising unit as well. So that's really the big difference, is that we more so focus on GEs, universities. We can answer general questions about major, but if it's specific, you should always go to your major.
Mm-hmm. And like Julie's mentioned before, if you're interested in a capped major, you definitely want to contact them specifically about their requirements as well. Or like somebody asked before about switching to a non-capped major. If you had questions about that, you can always contact them also. All right, so let's see. If a student already took calculus classes, let's say at a community college somewhere else, and they transferred them in, do they need to take the math placement test?
You would have to check whether that course would qualify you to either be exempt from a specific class or if it gives you equivalency to a specific class. And you can check the classes. If it was a California community college, what we have is assist.org. That has transfer agreements, and you would need at least a C- or better in that course anyways. But you can check assist.org to see if it would be equivalent to one of our courses here at UCSD. And as I mentioned, the updated catalog is 16 to 17, so just make sure you're looking at that one, and most of them are being honored. And for California community colleges, or if you took it at a different four-year university, it's actually up to the discretion of the admissions office, one, to see if it's transferable. If it is, you would then need to check in with the math department to see if it's similar to one of our classes, or if you could potentially petition it to be equivalent to one of our classes as well. You would just need a petition form and the syllabus. But yes, so you don't need to take the math placement if that course gives you credit for something, or if it is a prereq to another math course. You don't have to take the placement exam. It's just if that course does nothing for you essentially, and it doesn't give you credit, it doesn't transfer in as one of our UCC math courses, then you would need to take the math placement exam.
Okay, so this is about, this question is about transferring units, but for a different one for fine arts, but let's expand it to all the GEs. If you were to take a class that satisfies stuff for our GE requirements somewhere else, how do you get them in, or how do you make sure that it actually counts towards those requirements?
So that's a good piggyback on what I was just talking about. So this website's a good resource. If you took that at California Community College, you can check here. But the only thing you would need to do is make sure that you're looking at our approved courses list before you're checking for equivalency. If the course you took elsewhere is equivalent to one of our approved courses for a specific requirement, then it's going to automatically transfer in, and you should be fine. However, if you're trying to transfer in, let's say it has no course equivalency, it's just a random class you thought that might meet the requirement based on, what the requirement is, you can always petition it with our office. So for fine arts, as an example, if you took like a random music class elsewhere, but it's not equivalent to one of our music classes, you can always petition that, and you would just need syllabus and a petition form, and then one of our counselors will determine if it's eligible.
Let me just pull that up. Petition. Yeah. So if you go to Triton link under student forms is where you can find the petition. It's called student petition. And this is where you can print this out and fill it out. Obviously, hopefully you know this information, your name and your address, all that stuff. And then you want to say like, I took X class at Y university and I want it to count for fine arts, something like that. And like Julie mentioned before, it's a 3-semester unit class. It'll come in as a 4.5 quarter unit class, which is perfect. All of our classes have to be a minimum of 4 quarter units. So if it's anything less than that, let's say it was like a 1-unit music class, it's not going to count because it's only coming in as 1.5 quarter units, and we need a minimum of 4. So just make sure that if you're doing things like that, the unit conversion does meet like a minimum of 4 quarter units, okay? So that's the only caveat for that. Let's see. So if a student takes a foreign language placement exam or gets placed into a higher level than the first class, what's their next step?
So you would, the language exam is really good because it tells you exactly what class you should start with. So for example, if you're taking a language placement exam for Spanish and you're placed into Spanish 1C, 1CX, then you have to take 1C, 1CX, and then you would complete 1D, 1DX after that. So most of them are alphabetical sequences, so it's like A, B, C, D levels. So you would just basically complete to the 4th level, which is D, or depending, it really just depends on the language, but D is the most common one. If you get placed into C, you just need to do C and D, and then you're done. If you get placed into D, you just need to do D, and then you're done. So you can always reference our website because we have a breakdown of which classes would fulfill our requirements of the 4th level quarter class, and you would just need to take that class and finish the sequence from where you were placed.
So if a student, I believe we kind of mentioned this before or answered this before, but we're gonna do it again. It looks like the student is sent scores, ID scores in particular, but it hasn't shown up on their record yet. So what do they do next?
If it's not on your record yet, most likely, as long as you sent it by July 1st, it should be posted by mid-August. If it hasn't at that point, then contact us so we can make sure that admissions is working on it. But right now, UCSD is getting thousands of transcripts and scores and such. So don't be worried if it's not being posted right away. As long as they received it by July 1st, mid-August is about the deadline that they have for themselves to post it to your records. It's just if you submitted it after the July 1st deadline, you have to give them a little bit more time so they can work on it.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like, some of you have gone and taken, SAT scores, ACTs, any of the like APs, IB scores, things like that. So let's say like one of you maybe have like SAT scores and ACT scores, and you've taken like IB credit. So those are like a whole set of scores on their own. And let's say some of you also taken like community college credits on top of that. That's just for one person. And then, like I said before, there's about 1,600 of you.
And so that's just an ERC.
That's just an ERC. Yeah. And we have six colleges here. So if you multiply that by 6, that's how much paperwork that admissions is kind of going through right now. So that's why it takes about till mid-August or early August to kind of post it and make sure that they're doing everything right, because they don't want to post things incorrectly either. So, you know, give them some grace, give them some time. They're working as quickly as possible too with the vast amounts of information they're getting. And then, like I said, transfer students on top. Some transfer students have gone to 3 or 4 community colleges. Some of them have gone abroad. Some of them have come back, or some of them were in the military, and they have all of their records that they have to bring in. So one transfer student could have like 9 or 10 different things, and one freshman student could have 3 or 4 different things, times 1,600 for ERC, and then times 6. So that's a lot. So yeah, just be patient. I would say maybe end of July-ish, early August-ish. If you're worried or you don't see anything at that point, maybe you can contact admissions, but they'd be the ones to kind of answer those questions. But again, be gentle with them. They're trying the best they can, as we all are. Okay.
Yeah. And also make sure that you yourself are responsible for your academic record. So make sure that you are making sure they're posting it the correct way, because, you know, things happen, things get missed, or it gets inputted incorrectly sometimes. So you need to be able to catch that, because we can't all catch it for all of you. We try our best to, but there's not a guarantee that we will. So just make sure you're checking it, making sure that it's all good and that there's no issues with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's see. So in general, do freshmen take GEs, or general education requirements, their first quarter?
We always typically recommend like 1 or 2 GEs at least per student, but it really is dependent on your majors. Some majors are a little bit shorter, so you don't have as many lower division requirements to take, so you don't necessarily need to start them right away. So we have that knowledge, and we're going to give it to you in your course recommendations, but just be aware there probably will be 1 or 2 GEs in there. If not, don't worry about it. We know what your case is, and we've catered it to you.
Okay, let's see. We kind of already answered this one about, so if you have questions, somebody was asking about if they had questions about getting into a CAP major. Again, contact that CAP major on how to do that, or check their website on how to do that as well. Let's see. Some of these, so because we only have like 3 minutes left, I'm kind of sifting through these a little more to see if we can get like a different types of questions to kind of get a variety in here. So a student that's asking about A-level exams. So some students who are high international students, yay, if you've taken A-level exams, which are very different from AP, IB, or community college credits or transfer credits in general, how do they see that those got received? How many credits they got for that? How do they process that?
So you can always check with our office. We can check our internal systems to see if admissions has received it. We can't see what's on it. We can just see whether it's been received or not. So you can always call our office or email us, and we can try to check that for you. However, unlike IB AP scores, we don't have a list of equivalencies determined beforehand. So most likely you will need to contact the department specifically. So let's say you took an A-level math course. You would need to talk to the math department, see if it would qualify for anything. If you took A-level chemistry, have to talk to the chemistry department, and most likely they're going to maybe make you have to submit a petition. But it's really dependent on their own department and what they decide for you.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. And then for the petitioning process, the reason why we don't have a chart for it is because A-levels are taught differently in different countries. So, one A-level exam in like China might be different from one in Korea or one from England. So that's why each one has to be petitioned individually to see whether you do meet our requirements or not. And this is the petition form you can find on Triton Link as well. Let's see. So a student, I'm going to broaden this question because they're asking for very specifically about their own specific scores. But if a student takes standard level IB scores, then how do they know what that counts for at UCSD.
As Pepper mentioned before, we only accept higher level except for one, I think it's English, that we accept the standard level for. So unfortunately, if you only took standard level, it's not equivalent to anything here at UCSD and you won't be getting credit for it. We only accept the higher levels, and you can check that on our IB chart online.
So yeah, like it says here, there's only higher level exams are accepted in general. Let's see. So if students get credit from their AP stuff, and this is going to be the last question because we're already at 11:30. So if they get credit for courses through their AP credit, then is it recommended to just skip as many of those as you can and not do them, or
yes, you should not be taking courses that you got credit for. The reason being is because we would have an issue that we call duplication of credit. And that is an issue because you would be essentially taking classes for no credit, and that would, it may delay your time to graduate just because it's not making progress toward your degree. So definitely do not be taking classes that you've already received credit for. We understand that, you know, you might be iffy about the material, you might be worried, but you know, if you did well on an AP exam, it's because you know the material, so you would just be relearning that material. If you have any other questions, you definitely should just reach out to the department, and they can, kind of reassure you, give you a little bit more information. If you're worried about moving on too early, that usually isn't the case. Students are usually really happy about being able to move on and not having to take courses they don't necessarily need to take. But yeah, do not take courses that you get credit for.
All right. So let's see. It looks like that is all the time that we have today. So we're going to close this out really quick. All right. And then Julie's going to take us out.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
And make sure that we have all the information we need in order to close this out.
So that's all the time we have today. We will be sending out a recorded version of our webinars to your UCSD email addresses, along with some other important information. So please be sure that you're checking your UCSD email frequently, just because that's how we contact you, and honestly any department on campus will contact you through there. And make sure that you enroll in your courses during your appointment time, which we showed you on our webinar, and that you use the online advising system in the new student site so that we can help you with your fall schedule. Hopefully we'll see you all again at one of our other webinar seminars this summer, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks everybody.